guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Ethan Fitzpatrick today, who's a huge Longford Town fan. Ethan, you're going to be picking your 1 to 11 greatest Longford 1 to 11 in your eyes. How far are we going back here?
Probably going back just to the noughties, just the start of the noughties. I'm only 27 there myself, so any further I probably wouldn't be able to validate who I picked. But it was probably just my... there's a couple of players in there on merit, and then there's one or two. Then I suppose I was talking to a few Town fans during the week, and they were saying that I put in a few clangers, but there's a couple of personal favourite players of mine as well. So
yeah, well, that's fair enough as well. Like, you know, people often say when you put in that player, this player, but it depends what you've seen and what you haven't seen and what era you've watched and all that kind of thing as well. So I suppose we'll start off with goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper, I suppose there's only one choice really. I'm not trying to knock all the keepers we've had over the years, but there's been one man there, Stephen O'Brien, Digger, as I suppose a lot of us have known by. I was just looking up a few bits, obviously when I was doing out the team, and he had 305 appearances for Longford, which is the all-time highest cap, 250 league appearances. Fantastic keeper there through the glory days, all the cups and everything. Probably one of the best football chants over the years that I've heard in the ground. Anyway, I don't know if it's a PG channel, but I remember lads or whoever was there in the terraces singing 5'8" overweight Stephen O'Brien is fucking great. So yeah, look, just a great character. Always a bit of a laugh. Lovely lad around the club, and for the size of him, geez, he pulled off some fantastic saves over the years to keep us in games.
Is he still around as such, around the club, like?
No, he's not involved with us anymore. I'm not sure where he is. I think after he left us, I think he was involved in a bit of a coaching, all right, but I don't know where he is now today. But he just had such a long span in the club, and it was, I suppose, back in the time where, well, even at the moment, I suppose, in the League of Ireland, you can kind of really get to know the players because the league is a bit more intimate, I suppose, than if you travel abroad to these bigger stadiums and stuff. But he was just a great character to have around the club. He was always up for a laugh. Like,
what formation did you go actually?
Oh, I don't know if you know me. 4-4-2. It always has to be 4-4-2. That's the formation. I think that is League of Ireland formation. That's it. None of this continental style football. Just get it up into the mixer.
So who've you got at right back?
Right back, there was the defence. Now was the tricky one. When I sat down, I was looking at all the players we had over the years. There was a couple of good right backs, even up till now. At the moment, we have Shane Elworthy. He's a good wing back there. But I think in his career, he only had a short spell with Longford. He was here twice. It has to be Pat Sullivan. He was there in 07. It was a great Longford team in 07 at RHA. They got relegated, but that was for points deduction off the field. But on the field, that was a great team. Got to an FAI Cup final in 07 as well. Pat Sullivan, savage player. He came back then, I think it was the 14-15 season when we were in the first division and we got promoted. So I think part of him coming back was kind of wanted to get the club back up to Premier Division football. But geez, wicked defender. He could go in at centre half. He played a few games at centre half for us as well towards the end of his career. But she's a fantastic right back. He never put a foot wrong, really.
No, he was a very good defender, actually. Left back.
Left back, probably my favourite Longford Town player ever, hands down, local man, Sean Prunty, with the club. He was an absolute hero of mine. I remember he was just an icon back in the day. Like, if you were from Longford, he was playing for Longford Town. It was obviously, he played 7 or 8 years with us, right up until I think it was 07 when we went down. And then obviously he would have been way too good for first division football. I don't know if a lot of people might know about him, but what happened was he went professional then, and it showed up when he was doing the medical that he had a heart condition, so he had to retire from football. But he's still fairly active in, I think he does a lot of running and other sports like that, but he's not playing football anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, just an absolute hero. I think I still have a football at home there signed by him from some Pepsi camp back when I was like 8 or 9. But I'd say if I still seen him, I wouldn't be able to speak.
How old was he, do you remember, when he actually retired?
Oh, he was only, I wouldn't know, but I'd say he was only in his 20s, like late 20s maybe. He would have been at the club for maybe 7 to 8 years. So there was a big testimonial for him then. I don't know if you remember that. There was a couple of big names there from around the world played in it, and then obviously a good few of the legends came back. And look, it was only right, really, because he gave so much to the club down throughout the years, and he's probably the biggest local hero that's played for the club up until, I suppose, the last couple of years, till we've had a new man come in. But yeah, fantastic man, pure gent. So he had to be in the team. I don't think any Town fan would not pick him anyway.
I doubt it. It's good that he's fit and healthy, I suppose, as
Yeah.
well. On to centre back. So
centre backs. This is kind of a big one as well, because I was doing out my team, and there's a couple of centre backs here. So you had the likes of Graham Gartland that played for us, Pat Flynn, Stephen Paisley. Then probably at the start, when I started supporting them, or as long as I can remember back, you kind of had Brian McGovern there as well for a couple of seasons. But the one man that had to go in straight away for me, I don't know, this might cause a bit of a debate, but Barry Ferguson. He was captain when we won the cups. He done a couple of years at Longford Town. Another man, an absolute gent, great centre half. Used to be funny back in the day, because for some reason he was our penalty taker. You'd get a penalty, the whole stand would erupt, and next thing you'd see Barry trouncing up to the penalty box, and people would be like, "Will you get back? Get back! What are you doing?" I don't know what it is with teams not letting strikers take their penalties, but look, Barry was a great defender anyway, and definitely he's captain of my team. So
yeah, he's the guy. Do you remember I told you in the message? He's actually the chap that I done the FAI course with.
Yeah. I was trying to set up a late night league up here at work, and I got a number for the FEI officer, and it was Barry Ferguson. I was like, oh geez, that's the same name as Longford Town, whatever. Anyway, so rang him anyway. Next thing it was him, and I was kind of trying to be professional but not fanboy at the same time. I was like, oh, I'm a bit of a Longford Town fan. But yeah, no, he's a great man, great player. So I think he had injuries as well, only for that. And his son is flying as well now. Obviously, his name has been in the news a good bit there with his age and how he's developing. So hopefully he can make a good career for himself.
Yeah, I actually spoke to Barry about his time at Longford Town, and trust me, he loved his time at Longford Town. That was his favourite, I suppose, era of football as well. Like, he really loved the place, loved the club. Like, genuinely did. Like, you're talking to him normal, like he could say anything, you know what I mean? But he did. Like, yeah, he was a very good player as well. Absolutely.
Longford probably really punched above their weight back then, though, because you're looking at like 2 FAI Cups into a League Cup and into the League Cup final as well, and you were talking maybe top half table finishes, for a Longford Town team, really, for a Midlands team to do that when it was probably so Dublin orientated, or obviously you still have your Cork is a big city as well and clubs like that, but for a team from the Midlands to do it, it was just probably fantastic for the area, so you had a lot of players there who probably were at an unusual stage of their career, mightn't have been getting minutes, or just fell out of favour, but they just all seemed to come to Longford at that time and gel so well, and just magic, really.
Oh, they were fantastic players. The ones you've named already were very good.
Yeah, like if you look at any of the it was actually what struck me was when I sat down and started looking back at these players, the careers that some of them have had, and you think, Jesus, the likes of these boys played with Longford, but it wasn't like they were just seeing out the end of their career at Longford. They were there in their prime.
Absolutely.
Obviously, some of them have gone on to better pastures. Anyway, I have another centre half here for you. I don't know if this is one of probably scored one of my favourite goals that I can remember anyway, so I had to stick him in. That's Sean Dillon.
Yeah.
Unbelievable centre half as well. He's gone on to have a great career over in Scotland. He still comments on Longford Town stuff on the Facebook the odd time there. Obviously still has a big draw for Longford Town. I think it was 2004. I could be corrected now, but he scored an absolute worldie against Drogheda in the FEI Cup to get us into the final. Probably one of the best goals I can remember anyway. So he definitely had to go in there, and I don't think we've conceded too many goals with that back four anyway.
No, and just some of the names, we're just talking about some of the players, you've left out some good players, like Paisley and that. So that just tells you, the quality over the last, we're talking about, 15 years roughly.
Yeah,
I'd
say some of the older heads at Longford might have went for maybe McGovern or that, but I think just the way Barry and Sean were probably there for a few more seasons, and it was probably I was just getting a bit older that I was kind of able to appreciate them more, because I was only young when we were kind of doing all the cups and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, so I was, I suppose that was my four anyway. So
we'll move on to centre midfield. You're going for two in the middle, is that right?
two in the middle, yeah. Same again. I was looking at the names. I was like, Jesus, there's some great players here. There's one lad in particular that I want to mention. He's probably a favourite of mine in Longford, and he was very close to making it, but I just couldn't squeeze him in there, and that's Dean Fitzgerald. I remember he came from, I think it was up north, one of the teams he came from. I could be corrected there again, but he came down to Longford anyway, and he was just this absolute wall of a man in midfield. Like, Jesus, he was just a beast, like, just he was unreal. Another really nice man as well. Obviously, you have the current manager, Dara Doyle. He was knocking around back in the day. Even Gary Deegan played a season with us as well. But my first midfielder in there has to be the local lad. Got us back into the Premier Division this year. Dervin has to be. Like, A's been knocking around the club for as long as I can remember anyway. Going to games, you'd always see him there from a young age. There's two AstroTurf pitches at the back of Flanker, or Bishopsgate City Colin, whatever it's called. It's always known as Flanker to the people in Longford anyway.
I still think of it as that for some reason as well. Probably I don't know.
Everyone just calls it Flanker. I suppose it's just the handiest because it's been that for so long. But I remember, like, even when I'd say I'm maybe 4 or 5 years older than they, and you'd be playing AstroTurf or 5-a-side with the lads, and he'd just be knocking around, and he'd be mad for a game, and he might be only 10 or 11, and he'd be short the player, and next thing he'd come in and he'd just roast everyone, like, and you're just like, this fella's definitely going to end up playing for the town. And it was only a matter of time, really. He had the desire there, and he definitely has the work rate and the talent. And it was just fantastic to see him, like, the emotions, and like, I'm not taking it from any of the rest of the players that played this season, but it's always nice to have a lad from, say, Section O or from the supporters club that's been knocking around for years to do it, like, so it's probably like one of these Hollywood films.
It's funny you say he's knocking around for years, and he's only 21, the lad.
I know,
yeah.
Sure, he's just like, Longford would have it wouldn't have a massive fan base, really. I don't think any League of Ireland team can turn around and say they have a huge fan base. I think if you're a supporter in the League of Ireland for a club, you kind of know all the fans, all the faces anyway that have been there, especially because it's kind of swings and roundabouts. You'll have one team doing well for, like, just say, for example, Cork have been doing well there, and now they're back down in the first division. So you're probably just going to have that core group that'll always go no matter what. So you kind of get to build a lot of relationships with people. So he's a head that you would have always seen, no matter who we were playing. It could have been a Leinster Senior Cup game, he'd be there. That sort of way.
Yeah, I picked him in my first division team of the season, actually. As well.
That was
easy.
Yeah,
it wasn't easy because there's a lot of good central midfielders there as well.
Yeah, I think Longford, Longford fans were delighted to go up this year, because I'd say if we didn't go up this year, like, we definitely would have lost him. But like, you couldn't begrudge him. Like, I know all the Bows fans were raving about him last year when we played them in the cup. He put in a serious performance, but like, he has to be in there anyway in the team.
Absolutely, good to get one, current day player in as well.
Yeah,
it's a big thing too. Your second midfield player,
Second midfield player, there's a couple other ones here now that I was like, oh Jesus, he was great. Obviously, had Vinnie Pert in there for us. He was a great player. And Kevin O'Connor, he was good when he came to us. All right, he was kind of at the latter stages of his career, and he was after keeping us down the year before he scored that screamer in the playoffs. But no, the other man I have to go for is Mark Salmon. He was with the club. He got us. He was captain there when we got promoted in 2014. Great player, great guy. I think we've had some great centre halves over the year, but I just had to put in the two that probably were my favourite, and from spells where we got us promoted. I know there's been ones that have played at, say, the Premier Division or whatever, but that first division is a hard league to get out of. It's a hard slog, especially if you're a centre half. So I think a bit of experience there as well to give a dig out. So I think Dervin and Mark Salmon would be a good partnership that I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah, 100%. They would have been a good combination. No, they're good
Yeah.
choices. We'll move on to left wing or left midfield, whichever you prefer.
Left midfield. I think this is going to cause a bit of a stir now, to be honest with you. I was chatting to a few lads and I was just kind of saying, oh, who would you pick? Like, and I was kind of saying, oh, well, he's not in my team. And I was kind of told what he had, like, you're good. So I was going through a couple of names again. Obviously, we had Mark Rutherford there back in the day. Shawnee Francis played out there a few times. Another local, Alan Kirby, fantastic player.
Ooh, you're not going for Kirby. Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Desi Baker, he was there as well. Then I was kind of saying, like, you could even in modern day, you had McGlade play there. I know a couple of Longford fans when he left weren't happy, but like he banged in the goals for us that season in the first division. But there's not too many footballers that when they get the ball, you're on the edge of the seat. You know that there's just something magic going to happen. This man was only with us for a very, very short time. I think it was maybe one full season, or it might have even been a full season. But there was no way that I couldn't include him, and that's Eamon Ben Mohammed. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
Oh, I do,
geez,
yeah.
he came to. I think he played with. I think it was UCD he was with, and he signed for us then. And like, I think he played a couple of games, and everyone in the club was like, "Jesus, we need to give this man a 2 or 3 year contract." Like, because I knew he was going to go on and do bigger and better things. Like the ball, he'd just get the ball at his feet, and he kind of reminds you of a Paddy McCourt or somebody. Just his dribbling ability. But I remember he scored against Bohemians. I think it was in the EA Sports Cup on a Monday night. We were losing like 2 or 3 nil, and he got the ball. He took a couple of touches, cut inside, and he just let fly like, and it sailed in. But obviously he went on to Bows. Then he was only a short time with there, and I think he's playing his trade in the French league now as a left wing back. But a fantastic, fantastic player. Like probably one of them players that you're always like anyone that's probably supported the town around that time is always going to be like, oh, the one that got away, that sort of way. But yeah.
Is he an international?
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
Is he an international?
he
Yeah,
got the call up there, all right. And I think he done well enough with them, to be honest with you. I don't know. He was just he's playing in France now at the moment, anyway, because I'm up there. But geez, yeah, I know, fantastic player. But like, I think a few people were like, how could you not include X, Y, or Z? But like, look, he's just one of them players that when the ball went to his feet, you just didn't know what he was going to do, and he just had that ability to just sail by people. So he'd have to be in there for me.
it depends what way you're looking at. Like, you could look at Kirby and say he had a better, say, Longford career, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
But you see someone like that with magic. There was a guy at St. Pat's. His name was Babsy Livingston. I don't know if you remember him, but he had to retire early because he had a heart condition. He
yeah,
wasn't there long, but again, he was a magical player. And those players you kind of remember more, and you do appreciate those players, even if they're there for a short time. And
yeah.
Mohammed's similar in that sense too.
Yeah, well, like obviously Kirby and like say Daisy Breaker, Shawnee Francis, all them were there for the glory days. Kirby came back for a second spell and stuff, and like they're the names that like you're always going to associate with. Like they're always going to be in the chat. Whereas I said to myself, I think I might throw in one or two here that kind of are personal favorite players of mine over the years, or players that probably wouldn't get as much recognition because they weren't there for say the cups and stuff like that. But like I don't think talent wise, you couldn't have Mohammed. You couldn't exclude him from that squad. Like he was just magic.
Yeah,
And you
100%.
have to have a bit of that.
So on to your right side midfielder, right
Right,
winger.
right winger. This is probably another one that's going to cause a bit of a stir as well. I think boys will probably be expecting me to pick him anyway because, geez, I thought he was unbelievable. He played for us for a spell. He went away and he came back. When he came back, um, I think he had done a bit of a serious injury on his leg and he lost a bit of his pace and he was still probably the fastest man in the league. And that's Don Cowan. Look, he's probably not he is kind of probably a one-trick pony. Like he just skipped the ball by a player and he'd run. But Jesus, he had unbelievable pace. He played up front for us. I think it was in the first division anyway. I think it was 2011 or it could have been 2010. He played up front for about half a season, and Jesus, it was like nearly, like the knuckle puck in the Mighty Ducks. He'd just take a shot. It could go out over the Strokestown Road and it'd be dipping for weeks, or it could just sail in top corner. Like, he just had so much power and kind of raw talent. Like, he came back to us then for a couple of years. He was obviously part of that promotion winning team. When he came back, he was played more so out on the wing. and he'd literally just take the ball on his right foot and he'd kind of flick it by the defender about 5-10 yards, and he'd just run by them, like, because just the pace he had was. I remember when he left the store, I think it was Stevenage he went to, and you know the way you'd be watching First Division football, and there mightn't be huge crowds at it. And Don was playing up front for us there 1 week, and then next thing he signed with Stevenage, and I think it was on telly a couple of weeks later. Stevenage were playing some massive club in the FA Cup, and I was like, Jesus, he played for us, you know, this sort of thing. But look, he was unfortunate with injuries. I think he done his leg in. It could have been twice. But look, another lad. Obviously, that's after leaving out a few of the greats there. But I think if you had him on one side and Don the other side, you'd be causing defenders serious trouble.
I always say if you've pace, you actually don't need tricks because you can't just knock the body player.
Yeah, well, I've never really like anyone that's gone to I've never really seen him do like any of these step overs or any like mad tricks. Like he literally he just knock it down the channel, and his pace is unbelievable. I remember even back in the day when Longford were in FIFA, like I think he had one of the fastest paces in it. Like you'd be playing, you know the way you'd be playing lads that wouldn't know the League of Ireland. You might pick a lower ranked team and just get it out to him, and he'd just run like mad, like, you know. So it was good. It was good crack as well. Good banter. I suppose I could probably appreciate it more because I was getting a bit older when I was old enough to probably go out and celebrate when we got that promotion, you know, that sort of way. Whereas the years before I was only a gossin, like, you know. So yeah, look. So that's Eamon, Mark, and Don. So that's the four in it.
Brilliant stuff. So up front, who are we going for?
Up front as well. There's been a good few strikers over the years. Going to cause a bit of I think this is going to be the biggest stirring going to cause anyway. Well, my first has to be Dave Mooney. Played for the club. In my opinion, the best striker I've ever seen play for Longford. He's done it in the Premier Division. He scored, it was 22 league goals he got in 07. Absolute superb striker. Went on and had a great career over the water. I think he was with Leyton Orient. I wouldn't follow much across the way. I think that was it. All right, though. But Jesus, what a fantastic striker! Like if you had him up front, he's going to get you goals. Like, you know, like that Longford team in 07 was a fantastic team. But like if you look at the stats there, I think Mooney obviously had 22. I think the next highest score was only on 3 or 4. You know, like, so it just shows how much class he had. Like if you have any striker scoring 20 plus goals in the Premier Division, and like you're talking about a team where he mightn't have had as much service if he was playing with maybe a top one or two, you know, like, you know, look at like Patrick Hooban there, you know, like he's banging in big goals, but Dundalk probably have most of the ball every game. Maybe not now, but
yeah, you know, he did an interview with Dave Mooney as well, and yeah, he was talking about his time at Longford. He was, and that season, yeah, I think Longford were relegated due to
it was a point deduction.
He was annoyed. He was still, you could sense he was still annoyed actually about that.
Yeah, well, on the pitch, I think they were comfortably a mid-table side, and they got a 6 points deduction, and that put them relegated by just 1 point. So I don't know. We could do a whole episode on the FAI. You know yourself.
Do that every day, to be honest with you. Striker number 2.
Striker number 2. Well, look, there's obviously one striker that everyone's gonna pick, and that's David O'Sullivan. He had so many goals, unbelievable striker, but he didn't make the cut for my team, and I think that's gonna cause serious controversy. I'd say there'll be a good few lads there saying, geez, they're after having an awful clanger. But look, for me, Mooney's the man with the goals. Mooney done it at Premier Division level. Sully, fantastic striker. Obviously, he's the all-time leading goal scorer. He scored 60 plus goals. But like, look, it brings it back to debate the standard between the First Division and the Premier Division. You know, like he scored serious amounts. I think we used to have a thing, debt taxes, and Sully scoring a hat trick against Athlone. But like Athlone were probably not a great side back then, you know. So like, there's only one man. I sat down to make this team, and there was one man that came to mind straight away. Fantastic character, fantastic player for the club. I think every Longford fan or people from Longford would know this player as well, even if they never set foot in flanker. And I was like, this man, I'm going to have to squeeze him into my team somewhere. And I know it's going to cause a row or a debate because Sully isn't there. But Eric Levine had to be there.
That's the one I was thinking.
Yeah, had to be. there's no way I couldn't leave him out. Absolute character. I remember I was only very young anyway. I don't know how the parents managed it, but I was sitting in the house one day, and next thing, Eric Levine walked in, and it might as well have been the biggest superstar in the world. I couldn't speak, like, this sort of way, but he was just such a character. Like, even like, I'll always remember, like, opposition keepers to be trying to take kickouts and stuff, and he'd be lingering around the edge of the box, and he'd be throwing shapes as they're trying to kick the ball, and he was just, there was a serious touch of class about him. I'm not trying to knock Sully. Obviously, Sully was a fantastic player. Scored all the goals and stuff. You had a couple other good strikers there down throughout the years. I suppose one that does not really known for his scoring, but I also liked him. It was Gary Shaw. I suppose some Longford fans mightn't rate him so high because his return of goals wasn't great. But I think if he wasn't there at the time, Sully wouldn't have done the goals that he done, because Shaw was a good hold-up player. He went on a lot of flicks, and Sully had good pace to get in behind, So I think if Sully was leading the line by himself, that he mightn't have got as many goals that Shaw contributed to a lot of them. But yeah, like, I'd have a good graph for all of them, but I think Eric Levine I just couldn't leave him out. He's a fantastic player, an international as well. Still to this day, even during the week, he was writing stuff up on the Longford Town page. Great to see you back. Come on, the town. So he has a serious grow at the club. So look, I know that's definitely going to cause a bit of a stir there with a few lads, a few of the diehards there. There's some big Sully supporters down in Longford, obviously. But look, I hope that they can get it from my perspective that you couldn't leave Eric out.
Yeah, the funny thing is, from an outsider point of view, I'd probably go with Mooney and Levine as well. Because, as you say, Sullivan was top star for the club, but I don't think he was involved in the Premier Division at all, was he?
No, he was there for a season, all right, but
Was he?
I think he was there for one season with us. Jeez, you're putting me under pressure here now. Cut.
Trouble.
Yeah.
No, trouble.
He definitely was. No, he definitely was there for a season anyway. It could have been two. He could have been there for the 2 seasons we were up. But he didn't have a huge goal return. But Jesus, when we went up that first year, we finished 6th. Well, like, that really flattered us, because we won. I think we won 4. It was either 3 or 4 out of our last 5 games, and it was all against kind of clubs that had nothing to play for, really. The mid-table clubs, and that kind of flattered us. And there'd be kind of a big debate in Longford then about that as well, because Tony Cousins was kept on for 2016, and then we were one of them teams that just went down completely without a fight, whereas a lot of people would have been calling for a new manager, but you couldn't really, because we're after, it was we finished 6th, this sort of thing, but it wasn't really a sixth place finish, if you get me.
Yeah, but sack him in that case.
Yeah, and I think Longford are kind of always a club that financially, they kind of, they don't really make any harsh decisions. To be very financially stable. I know when we went up in 2014, we had the likes of Stephen Rice there, Pat Flynn and Pat Sullivan. They were kind of the 3 signings that we made. But like, we had a lot of youth there as well. So I know people are saying, Longford must have had a massive budget. And there's a lot of talk about, say, budgets now because we're gone up and stuff like that. But I think we're just one of them clubs that kind of, a bit like a Finn Harps there, we have kind of like a certain budget, and we never really splash over it. Like, there's a lot of clubs in the league. I know Shells are kind of debt free now, and I know that stems back though to a good few years back, But like, even Cork City this year now could be in trouble back in the first division, So I think you have to praise the board over the years, especially the chairman Jim Hanley. I know there's been times there, even if you go back as far as the late 90s, when we didn't have a ground. They just had Strokestown Road. There's a couple of old clips on YouTube there, Stephen Kenny and the current chairman back then, and saying that they were struggling for money and stuff like that. So I suppose it's the goodwill in the League of Ireland that keeps these clubs going, and I just want to mention that.
It's vital to be self-sufficient in this league, especially because it's a success, but then that success can set you back like 10 years or whatever it is. Look at Shelburne. We just maybe they would swap that, but I don't know. They were out of the league for 10 years, and they're back obviously in the first division again. There's a lot of stories there. Cork up as high as ever, and then they're down to the bottom again.
I think Dundalk is a perfect example there. The way they had the begging buckets out made not so long ago, and all of a sudden they're in the highs of Europe. But like you still kind of they have to be cautious because you don't want like if they miss like the European money is huge in the League of Ireland because the prize money is so low. But you don't want a team to budget for say Europe and then all of a sudden they don't make it. And then because like it's not that much money that's going to cause a League of Ireland team. It's not millions, you know. It's really hundreds and thousands that could wind up a League of Ireland club, you know.
And the good thing I liked about that as well was the fact that there's a few controversies, and that's what it's all about as well. It's not a safe 1 to 11, so I love that. Thanks very much.
No bother. Enjoyed it there now. It was good crack. I enjoy watching. I've watched a couple of other lads that you've had up so far, and it's good videos. It's good to have platforms there, giving the league a bit of a light, you know. So fair play to you for putting in all the work behind the scenes. I know it's not easy.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that.